Since I began to walk with Christ, things I was seeking in people, I learned that I should find it from Him first. So all the love and the support and the emotional support that I was looking for and the acceptance, I didn't know the whole time that God had all that for me. By finding God and letting Him guide me, it's made it much easier to not accept things that I know I shouldn't accept. We put too much of ourselves in the first season, which is just dating, because you're not even obligated to go on a second date with a person. But if you've done too much, then you feel like you're stuck or you have to be there. And so I would just say to do everything in a season or in a set time, and not to give too much of yourself at the beginning.
I did not date him in season. In the beginning, we weren't friends long at all before we got together. And then almost 6-7 years later, it's just like, I'm still there. And like you said, I felt like I needed to stay because we already done did everything else. Like, my to stay with him. This is the person I want. I didn't see myself with anybody else. I could not see myself with anybody else. But yeah, I knew I didn't want to marry him. When you don't date in seasons and when you do those things and you're intimate and you're committed fornication, you don't have the sight of God. When you don't date in seasons, you're always dating for the potential of the next season.
If you're hanging around people who are promoting, like, let's have sex, or girl, you need to go get you some and all this kind of stuff, even if you were taught that way, it's like you're going to become who you hang around. So you got to where you watch your association, because like with my husband, when I met him, like you said, we dated in those seasons. The only people who really knew about him was like my close family members. We had that time to really be around people who shared in that interest to pour into us, because you just can't tell everybody, like you said, about your situation. You got to do it in those seasons. Hi guys, welcome to Combat Culture. Let me testify. My name is Antavia.
And my name is Felicia.
And today we are honored to have on our show the lovely Miss Shakila Harris. Miss Harris is a woman of many talents. She is a registered nurse, YouTuber, owner of a baking company, and a well-known Christian media influencer.
She shares many inspirational experiences on her social media sites that continually reflect her love for Christ. She created CLM, Christ-Led Ministries for Men and Women. She answered the call of God in August of 2022, and ever since she has been making a huge footprint on the earth for the kingdom of God. We are so thankful to have you on the show today, Shakila, and we're so excited to share your many testimonies with the world today.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. We would greatly appreciate it. Today's episode, we are talking about overcoming the fear and struggles of dating after heartbreak. The difference between people of the world and Christians is we have God to be our guide to navigate and help us through this process. So the first question we have for you, Shakila, is what are some of the fears and struggles you had during your dating process before your spiritual walk, and how did your spiritual walk help you in dealing with those fears?
When I was dating outside of having God, a lot of fears I had were that I wouldn't be accepted, I would never find the love that I deserved. It would be hard because I had insecurities of my own, and I let those insecurities kind of trump me getting someone, because I was like, well, they're not going to accept me, or that some of my traits or habits I had might be too much for somebody. And I was told a lot that I had too high standards. But since I began to walk with Christ, things I was seeking in people, I learned that I should find it from Him first. So all the love and the support and the emotional support that I was looking for and the acceptance, I didn't know the whole time that God had all that for me. And since I got that from Him now, it's not as, how like you thirst for those things from someone and you want it so bad, but now it's not so much of a craving anymore. So like once I get it, it's not to the point where you accept a whole lot of stuff that you shouldn't, because okay, they giving me this type of attention. They checked off one of the things off my list, so I'm gonna just go with whatever. You know what I'm saying? So by finding God and letting Him guide me, it's made it much easier to not accept things that I know I shouldn't accept. And once people start showing me things that I have on my list, I don't get so excited about it anymore until I fully know the full person and not just accept things because I feel like, okay, they accepted me and they have some of the things I like. I'm gonna just go with it because I don't think I get it anywhere else. But since I'm getting it from God, I'm not so much quick to just jump on the first thing.
Yeah, that's very good what you're saying. And I feel like that's very, like, people need to know that out there, that in finding and spending that time with God, you realize what you truly deserve and you're not out there seeking for something, trying to change yourself or accept things that you know you shouldn't accept.
I just feel like a lot of times we, everybody have insecurities, and sometimes those insecurities make us just feel so undeserving. But once we realize that God, He made us how He wanted us to be, and we're made in His image. So once we know that, then we shouldn't be. Even though it's still hard sometimes, we shouldn't focus on those things, because if He wanted us any different, He would have made us different.
And like what you said, like you have to be focused on Him. And like watching your story, seeing you, what you just said, like when you're after the heart of God, then you could be after the heart of that person. And you're not so focused on the list and things of nature. So it's just like, if you don't meet the things of God, then you know, it doesn't matter. I really see that in your testimony, that it seems like once you got after the heart of God, you were able to get after the heart of the person. And that's how you get what God has for you instead of what's in this world.
Yes, because you'll know that it's meant for you and that it's true, because He should be the center of it anyway. And if He's not, then that's the first thing we should be asking.
Amen.
Do you believe in God? Who you follow?
Amen.
Who are you submitted to?
Exactly.
Right.
Whatever He submitted to, and you get in that commitment, you will be submitted to. It's just right to Him. So it's very important. And key thing that you said that. Speaking of insecurities, like you said, we all have them. And you mentioned on your YouTube channel, you battle with many things such as like depression, acceptance, homosexuality. You also say God can't. I love this quote that you said. You said God can't pour into a full pot. We fast to empty our pot, meaning our mind, heart, and soul, so God can restore and fill us up back in Him. In the last episode, we also talked about like getting to the root of things, cutting things out the root. And in your testimony, just like a lot of us, the reason behind that is our roots are in the world versus God. So the branches of it is depression, acceptance, homosexuality, but the root is, it's just that you're rooted, you know, in the wrong thing. Like you have to be rooted in God. And a lot of us, we focus on bringing the branches to God instead of bringing the roots to Him. When you come as you are, you bring the root to Him. That's how He's able to like cultivate you, move you out, and plant new roots in Him, so that you're planted in the God of living water. So with that being said, what advice would you give people who are single Christians who are struggling with overcoming the struggles of their past and desire to obtain a kingdom marriage?
For me, one thing would be not to be afraid of your testimony, because sometimes your testimony would lead you to certain people, or, you know, also to bring other people to God. And I used to be very insecure about that part of my testimony until God convicted me about it. And He was like, how you not going to talk about it? Because you can potentially help someone else. And a lot of times people feel like if you have problems like homosexuality, or like even if you drink or anything, that you have to have all those things fixed before you go to Christ. But He wants you to come to Him the way you are. If those things need to be fixed, He will change them within you while you're on your journey, because it's not going to happen all at once. Now, I listened to a preacher, and he put a lot of stuff into perspective for me. And he talked about dating in seasons, and how God says that everything has a season. He had 5 seasons, and the first season was it's just like the first date. You have no obligations towards anyone. You're allowed to go out and date other people, but it's not with culture dating. If you say you're going on a date with somebody, they automatically think, okay, I'm obligated not to talk to nobody else. I just got to stick to this one person, because they pour so much into that first season. And once we do that, we have like these expectations that aren't even meant for that part, because just because we're going on the first date, I don't owe you any happiness. I'm not obligated to, you know, make you feel good. God is supposed to do those things for you. But if I'm with you and we end up past the season of dating, our first date, then you can add to my happiness, but you're not the person that's fully giving it to me. And he talked about how we do so much stuff in the wrong seasons, like dating. When in the second season was dating none exclusively, and that's, you know, just you and the person. Nobody know y'all dating. Maybe if they see you somewhere, they know them, but like you know, you still getting to know that person, knowing their ins and outs, seeing them in different environments, what things make them mad, how they act when they're angry, and going through all these seasons, you're not intimate at all. And that's what culture messes us up at. They feel like, okay, you're going with this person, or y'all dating, y'all could be intimate when in God's word He tells you, know, that's for marriage. So that's the first part we mess up at, because then sometimes, you know, it can bring out a lot of feelings in someone after being intimate, and one person had an expectation, okay, well, now we're in a committed relationship, when the other person's still just casual out here doing what they're doing, but now you're giving too much of yourself, and you built those expectations that aren't even meant for that season, because you're doing things outside of the season that it's supposed to be in. And then the third season he talked about was dating exclusively, and it's where you take him around your family, around friends, how he treats you around around his friends and his family? Do he act different around certain people? Do things trigger him around, so you can see how he would act and how he would present and treat you with other people. Then the fourth season was engagement, and he had us laughing. He was like, you still not being intimate. And he was like, if you want to date, if you get to the point where okay, this is my person, and like y'all want to take vacations and stuff, you should. If you can't afford to get separate rooms, then you don't need to go, because you might have the willpower not to, get to that point with that person if you do have the same room, but you don't need to set yourself up for any type of temptation, because the enemy can work in any kind of way. You think you're strong, but then you go on that vacation, you never know what can happen. So he was like, you need to date and set boundaries. And I feel like a lot of times when people set boundaries now, people take it as a bad thing, saying you're doing too much. But you have to set boundaries, because you know what triggers you and what things you can't stay away from. So you better not put yourself in that situation, is what I'm trying to say. And the last season was to date in marriage. And when you get married, I think a lot of people feel like, okay, I don't have to do all the same stuff that I did the first time when I met them to get them, but you have to do whatever you did to get them, you got to do it to keep them. You can't switch it up. So I really like the analogy that he used about dating in seasons, because I feel like he said, we put too much of ourselves in the first season, which is just dating, because you're not even obligated to go on a second date with a person. But if you've done too much, then you feel like you're stuck or you have to be there. And so I would just say to do everything in a season or in a set time, and not to give too much of yourself at the beginning. Not even telling too many of your dreams or things that have happened to you in the past, because sometimes if you tell her, okay, this person cheated on me, they had a baby on me, sometimes a lot of people are like, okay, she accepted that or he accepted that, I can do what I want, they'll take me back. They don't have any standards for themselves, so they just accept anything to say they have something.
Yeah, that was really good, and I can relate to that, because I shared in the past too, like you said before, like you were ashamed of your test. There's a lot of things that I was ashamed of too. Some things I didn't get into, but the person that I was dating I was with him for a long time, and I did not date him in season. In the beginning, we weren't friends long at all before we got together, and then almost 6-7 years later, it's just like I'm still there. And like you said, I felt like I needed to stay because we already done did everything else. Like my to stay with him. I never introduced him to my parents, because it's just like I still haven't done that. Like I take, because my parents are married, and I take marriage serious, and that's how the world confuses you, because I was just like, this is the person I want. I didn't see myself with anybody else. I could not see myself with anybody else, but yeah, I knew I didn't want to marry him. All I did, but we didn't take that. When the question came up, I was just like, no, because it's just like I realized that this isn't what God had for me. Like it was a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of like issues there, and that's not God. And when you don't date in seasons, and when you do those things and you're intimate, when you're committing fornication, you don't have the sight of God, and you're seeing these things and you're dating. There's nothing wrong to date somebody for potentially only, if the only thing you can say is, I know that he's eventually going to get to that person, and that's a problem. And I feel like that happens a lot when you don't date in seasons. You're always dating for the potential of the next season. I really took the time to see that person in all seasons. So that was very powerful what you said.
I think the world wants us to move so fast, and like with dating with season, God says everything has a season, but until we read His word and realize that we'll try to live by society norms, so you gotta have a house by this age, you gotta be married by this age, kids by this age, they got a certain type of person that you're supposed to date, and everything isn't the same for everybody. And I feel like culture misses everything up, because I don't know if y'all talk about other like brands and stuff on y'all thing, but I see where I'm gonna just say some dating apps. It's like 2 of them, and they have billboards, and the billboards say celibacy isn't the answer, or like just trying to promote marriage. Sex before marriage, and I'm like, that's totally the enemy, because God tells you not to do that. And I think people forget, and they don't. A lot of times, in church, they tell us you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. You're supposed to they just tell us, but they don't give us the reason why. And I feel like if we truly knew the reason why, sometimes a lot of us wouldn't have even made the mistake of doing it. But it's not until after we do it, because, we don't know truly. That we just know our mom said don't do that. But, you don't know why. And it's because that type of intimacy with someone brings a lot of emotions and connections, because back in the Bible days, that was I would say the way that God tied two people together, when he said it became one, it was after they had been intimate together, and now your spiritual problems are connected to me, my spiritual problems are connected to you. And sometimes when you do that with the wrong person, you could be going through some stuff and you don't even know what it is, but it's because you have the weight of them on you. And it's stuff that you're not even supposed to be carrying, because you're not supposed to even do that with that person anyway. But you're not knowing that, and you won't even realize that until you get a relationship with God. And I didn't know that either, because I went through a situation where me and this guy was talking, and God had told me a million times to leave him alone, but I wouldn't. And every time he gave me a sign, like it would get worse and worse, to the point where like, okay, I just can't do it no more. And I was sad, and like I had a lot of heartache, but it wasn't even my problem. It was stuff that he had going on, and I'm like, okay, I don't even supposed to be dealing with this kind of stuff. And like you said, you see the potential in a person, and we're like, okay, well maybe after a while he'll be this type of person, or he'll be the person I want him to be, but it ain't gonna end up like that. You're just gonna continue to get hurt, and if you're living for the word and not doing it the way God intended us to.
And I know, like, we grew up, we knew why you shouldn't do it. But in the day, like, if you're not hanging around the right people that is going to be pushing you for that, that's another thing that's important for you to be hanging around people that support that vision, if that's what you're trying to do and what you should be doing. So it's like, if you're hanging around people who are promoting, like, let's have sex, or girl, you need to go get you some, and all this kind of stuff, even if you were taught that way, it's like you're going to become who you hang around. So you got to make sure you watch your association, because like with my husband, when I met him, like you said, we dated in those seasons. The only people who really knew about him was like my close family members. We didn't tell anybody. A lot of people didn't know until after we got engaged, because we had that time to really be around people who shared in that interest to pour into us, because you just can't tell everybody, like you said, about your situation. You got to do it in those seasons, because you need that time to develop on your own as a couple, and also have those right people pouring into you, because you don't want everybody in it. Because the people who love you, I knew my sister, I knew my mom, my dad, they were going to give me the right advice on when to him and what I should do and how I should move. So like you said, I think it's very important for you to date in those seasons, because you really get to know that person, and spending that time with God as well, and the people around you who are like-minded like you, they can pour in as well. Because sometimes, like you said, you do get in love and you get the feelings, and culture tells you, oh, I should be married at this age, so you may accept certain things, but those people around you can check you and be like, I think you might want to look at this, and kind of pull back. So I think that's very important to have those people around you to pour into you.
And the key thing is y'all waited.
Yeah.
So you were able, and in your waiting, you're not only is your eyes open, but your ears are open and choose to listen. I didn't wait when I was with him. I met him at 14, but we really started dating seriously. Like we were off and on, but we really started dating seriously nonstop when I was 18. And I also lost my virginity to him around that time too. So what they were saying to me was going in one ear and out the other, because even though they were giving advice, I'm like, he making me feel nice, so I'm not listening to you, so it's just like, that's why you have to wait too, so that your thinking, your hearing, and your vision is not distorted.
I have that soul tie with them, and I'm like, I know this is bad for me. I have to break that. And you have to look with my husband. The thing that really attracted me to him is how he kept pointing me to God. He would send me sermon, he would send me messages, and he wasn't sending me messages and saying like, asking me what I'm wearing at night, or being double-minded, where you're a double-minded man, where you're acting like you this Christian man, but you're like, oh, what you wearing tonight? Send me certain pictures. My husband wasn't like that, and I actually met him online, but it was like his attitude and the things that he said to me was totally different. So definitely having that man, just because somebody says they're a Christian, like you said, dating them in them seasons, you could really see what he truly represents. So that's very important.
Yeah, because some of the ones that say they're Christian, sometimes they be the worst ones. Like, you say you're a Christian, but you're doing everything aside of what a Christian's supposed to do, and it's crazy. That's why they say you have to know the word for yourself too, because just because he's a Christian, he say he is, you will know how he's supposed to act. And to bounce off what you were saying about your friends and your circle, it does matter, because it's a lot of people. Because I've been celibate for 2.5 years now, and it's a lot of people saying you ain't gonna never find nobody that's not gonna want to do it in this day and age, and you eventually gonna have to do it. But I'm like, no, because and then the big thing too, they're like, how you know you're gonna like him once you marry him? You can't unmarry him. And I'm just like, if we expect God to give us all these other things, what make me think God won't give me the man that I'm supposed to have, and one day to know the stuff that I like, or we can get to know each other in that way. But I feel like we give God the ability to, and the credit for certain things, but other things we feel like he not gonna do. But when he created all this stuff anyway, so what makes you think that by me waiting and honoring him that he not gonna send me what I need or the person that I supposed to have. And it's a lot of times with your circle too, like what you said keep it to yourself and only tell people you can trust, because there's a lot of people who will know that that person is for you, and they'll try to get in your head and talk and make you think, no, you don't need him and he not gonna be good for you, and mess up something that God has sent to you because you kind of think you can trust them, but they hating on you in the end and don't want you to be happy and have anyone.
Amen. That's very true what she's saying. And like you said, make sure you tell the right people and have those right pouring into you, because not everybody that say they're for you is truly for you.
Yeah.
And before you said you hated yourself before and you had low self-esteem in one of your videos, and you said the devil uses what you don't like about yourself as a tool to win you over. So the first person that likes you or compliments you or says something to you, you go. So that statement that you said, it was very powerful, because a lot of people, they do that. Like if you have insecurities, low self-esteem, this person is complimenting you, they're saying these things about you, and this person is not really a good person that you should be with, but they play on those insecurities to make you feel good about yourself and also use them to tear you down. Those open the doors, that can open the door for the devil when you're doing it in the worldly dating, but when you do it for Christ, it can open up different doors as well, better doors for you. So can you shed light and advice on how your dating experience was before God was the center of your life versus now?
Before, I would say, I was going by what the word was saying, and the tough guys, and they were like, you need somebody that do this and look this type of way, and what you saying on what I said about the devil using what you don't like, because I've been heavy set my whole life, so probably I can remember, I think I started gaining weight in probably like the 5th or 6th grade, and I had been heavy set, and then I started getting all the acne, and I had real bad hyperpigmentation on my face, so I was just like, okay, other kids in my grade, it was like they had the pretty skin, everybody's small and petite, and I'm just around here looking like I'm looking, and it really weighed on me, and I had a lot of depression from that. And then it's like the devil had spoke to me about it once before, but I really didn't know, because back then I didn't know God for myself, and it was like, okay, but at the same time it's crazy because I knew something was wrong about it and it wasn't right, even though I didn't even know anything about it. And so he was like, okay, well, I can't get her that way, so I'm gonna play into her insecurity. And it's like that after that happened, I was like, okay, well, I don't like myself. This person saying they like me, they not worried about the things I'm worried about myself, so I'm just gonna go with it. And that's kind of what messed up, and everything just trickled down from then, because my depression got worse. So I was doing more things of the world. I was drinking, and I started smoking and everything, but it's crazy because God took all this stuff away from me. And then after I got out of that part, I started dating guys, and it just like I still was picking the wrong people. And that was the thing, because I was picking and I wasn't letting God pick the person for me. And I would go through a lot of heartbreak. I would always meet the guys that were, just out to use and not truly into you, still playing on the things you were insecure about, but they seemed to act like they liked it, to get what they want. But now dating with God, I know that I don't have to accept those things. And if I'm dating, I need to listen to my intuition, which we always say that little thing in the back of our mind, but it's God telling you, okay, you don't need to give this person the time of the day. You just need to go on about your business. Don't even hold them up, and to listen to him. And since I know his word and the things that I'm supposed to accept, and know that whoever he's sending me is supposed to be centered in him also, makes it easy, because that's the first thing. If you say you don't believe in God or know about God, or you go to church but you really don't have a relationship, then I know that's a red flag for me right there. So I don't even have to go any further, because I need God to be the center of your life, because how you supposed to lead me and a family, if we get to that part, if you're not being led by who you're supposed to be led by.
Amen.
And like you said, the devil, he uses your insecurities for a tool, but for me, he also uses your pride for a tool. For me, I knew, because I was raised in the church, it's like I want to wait until marriage. And I had like different boyfriends before him, but they never could get to me because they wanted it so bad. And I was like, I want a person that is wanting to get to know me, like after me. So the enemy, he knows your pride too. And it was just like, instead of me really getting to know the guy, like I was really prideful in securing my virginity, if that makes sense. Like the way he was able to get into me is because he also played a game. The devil knew what I wanted in a guy. Like I wanted a guy that was not just after that. So he pretended like he wasn't just after that. He said the right, like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to get to know you. He was an old school type of person. Like he hung around old school people. Like he was only 3 years older than me, but a 14-year-old with a person that's 3 years older, they think different, So by the time we started dating when I was 18, he sounded a lot different from the other guys that was other 18-year-olds. Like he was after that, at least he made it seem that way. You know, he kept making it seem like he wanted to get to know me, my mind, this and things like that. So that's what the enemy used. So that made me want to give it to him more. I was just like, oh, you definitely are the guy because you're not after it. So you have to just make sure that you are not letting the enemy come in any ways, and you're looking for, or you're waiting for, when you're speaking to that person, look to see if they're prudent, if they're wise, do they have heart for God? And like you said, what are they saying? My sister put me on the online thing too. I was like, no, Kenny, you know, like, but it's just like they will say they're Christian men, they're after God, but then you would ask me when we gonna meet up so I can see what that body do. You know, that's not, you have to listen to the things that they say, because that's not God. Like, we only have one conversation. After the second conversation, you want to come to my house, but you don't want to take out. You know, that's not God. So you have to, like you said, pay attention. And when you are in God, you will see that it's different from how you date in the world. Like, even with me, what you said earlier too, like, you have to have your boundaries and know your triggers. Like, for me, when I'm talking to someone, I don't text you after like 8 o'clock. I'm not calling you after 8 o'clock. Like, I cut off a time, because and I'm not even gonna open up the door for that. I'm not saying that people who do that, they're wrong for that, but for me, I'm not gonna do good.
I understand. My grandma used to say, she said, ain't never one thing going on that late at night. So
and in the world, when I was dating the way of the world, we be texting all kinds of, like, you'll be up on the phone till like 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, were we talking about the scriptures of the Bible? Absolutely not. You know, so it's like, now I have to cut, because that's something the enemy is going to use your past. I'm like, no, because I know that was a struggle for me before in the past. That's how the devil was able to get in, and I was able to do a lot of different things in this world with them late night phone calls, and, you know, in my heart to have a desire for the sin of fornication. So it's just like, at a certain time, we don't have nothing else to talk about.
That's true. And don't let that person twist the word God to make you do things that you know that you're uncomfortable with, because they can do that as well. Because even when I was dating, there would be guys, I'm like, I thought you said you were a Christian. Like, God know I'm a man. He know I got needs. He'll forgive and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, how can you say that? But if you're somebody, you don't have that relationship with God on your own, that person can twist you and say, oh, well, God already know you're going to be my wife, and we already married under God, and telling you this type of stuff. And you're like, well, some people, if you don't have that relationship, you'll be willing to do those things that they say.
Because you don't, it's crazy until you get to know him for yourself, and he open your eyes to a lot of stuff. You be like, I was doing that, or I was accepting that before I met God. Like, what was I doing? What kind of life was I living?
Well, what made you stand out when we were watching your videos is during the time of you being single. While you're single, you're living for God, and you're doing things, you're traveling, you're working on your temple, you're doing things, spending time with God, and doing things to enjoy life, the life that he created for you, the things that he has in his life for you, by traveling and, like I said, working on your temple. That's very important for people of now these days that are single, because I feel like a lot of times when you're single, a lot of people, they are, like you said, focused on what culture says. Because I know me and my husband, we started dating when I was, I think, 30. And culture, like you said, they'll say by that age, you're supposed to have this many kids. You already should have been married. So I feel like before I met him, I was just like, in my mind, I'm not going to get married. I don't feel like I was dating happily single. And I feel like you definitely need to do that by spending that time with God, because I wasn't as close with God. My husband, that relationship I had with him pushed me towards God. With that being said, what is your advice and war points to giving single Christians dating in these times?
Not to worry about what people tell you, because when I first started, it was hard, because everybody, like I was telling y'all, everybody was like, you'll never find nobody if you wait until you get married. But like you said, your husband, when you met him, he pushed you closer to God. That's how you will know that that's your person in one way, because they will try to bring you closer to God's word than try to take you away. Because like you said, the enemy will twist God's words, and you'll never know he twisted it if you don't even know for yourself. And people telling you, and I think people a lot of times mess up. They're like, God knows your heart. He know you're gonna make mistakes. That's what he died for. But I feel like you can't abuse it. Just because he died for your sin doesn't mean you can go out here and sin freely, doing everything against the word and what he says against marriage and having sex and adultery and all that stuff, because it's only going to send you one way. You're going to stay hurt whether you know it or not. Until you stop doing it, you'll realize, okay, I was causing my own pain by living against the word and what God was telling me to do. And my advice would be not to give up on your boundaries, not to give up on your expectations in someone. And you know, a lot of people told me that I'm too picky, but I'm not. I don't think it's that I'm picky. I think it's that I know what I know God want me to have, and I'm not gonna go against what he says he has for me. And not to feel like you're gonna be alone forever, because I haven't dated in a long time, and I kind of got to the point too where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm the person in the Bible. He said you'll never get married and have kids because it's not for everyone. But I know that's not true now. But I just have to, you just have to wait and be patient, and He'll send you your person at the right time. And just to pray and ask God that when He does send your person your way, that you will know, and that you won't miss Him telling you, okay, this is the person I'm sending for you, and that you can hear Him telling you that that's your person.
What I loved about what she said, what we loved about you and your testimony, you live on purpose. And despite you being single, like, yes, the desire for us is to get married, but God has many things for your life. And what you said about that comment, if you have that desire, then like you said, it is for you. It's your right to be married, and it's gonna happen. But the thing about you is you don't, at least from your blogs and what you show, you're not just sitting around waiting for it to happen. You created a ministry. You're a baker. You're an RN. You went back to school. You did so many things. And it's a book called God Is My Matchmaker by Derek Prince. And it talks about how his after his wife died, his second wife, like, she was single for a long time after her divorce. But in her singleness, she did so many things that helped her be a good helpmate for her husband. So it could be your husband isn't coming because you're not gaining the tools that God needs you to do to be a helpmate for the man that He designed for you before the beginning of time. So that's really impactful, because you're always going to have to love on yourself, whether you're married or single, whatever season in. And you do that, and you do it well. And I know that those tools are going to play well into your marriage.
Yeah, definitely. Because even like before I met my husband, and I used to see like a lot of my friends were getting married, and they were like in their 20s, and I'm like, well, why this happening to me? Because at that time I was a virgin. I'm like, I'm around here, I ain't doing that, but they doing it, and it's not happening for me. Like, why is this happening? But when I think back and I look back, and I'm like, if I would have got married back then, I would have been divorced, because at the end of the day, you have to spend time with God and that relationship with Him, and knowing your identity. Because like you said, just like in life you have seasons, in life you're going to have seasons where you're going to change as well. And a lot of times you don't have God as the center. Well, anytime you don't have God as the center, that's going to hinder you from knowing who the source is, who the manufacturer is to help you in that relationship. And I didn't have those tools before I met my husband. And if me and him would have got married during that time, we would have been divorced. So it's like, you don't want God to give you something before it's time. And I thank God that he knew me better than I knew myself. And He waited to give me my husband until I was ready for him. So that's very important. So it's like, when people looking at you, I'm like, my goal, and that's why I didn't just go and marry anybody. I'm like, my goal is to get married and stay married. I don't want to get married just to say I did it. At the end of the day, I want to get married to stay married. So I got married when I was 34, 33, 34, around that time. And like you said, culture will make you feel like, oh, well, you're not, at this time, this and that. It's God's time is the perfect timing. And that's what I've learned through this journey, even with kids, having kids and everything. God's timing is the perfect timing. So just trust God on that journey. And I love the fact, like Felicia said, you're living out loud for God, and you're showing that in your singleness, you can be happy, you can live out loud and travel the world, do things for God, and God's going to send you that perfect man that's made just for you.
And you're not picky, you're patient. And like what she said, the closer you get to God, people say those things, the closer you get to God, a fruit of the Spirit is long suffering or patient. So at the end of the day, you know exactly what God has for you. You know who you are in Christ. You're not going to settle. Like, you continue to work on those tools that He is building for you, so that way you can have the man that He designed for you before the beginning of time. Like, you're not picky, you're patient. I've been abstinent for 7 years. And I haven't dated like that. And it hasn't been easy, but like you said, like when I was with that person, it was a lot of soul ties, a lot of breaking I had to still doing, and you don't want to get in a marriage to ruin that, and I don't want the enemy to step on my pride either, where it's just like dance on my pride and be like, okay, when my husband does come, I feel like I don't need nobody because of I'm a self-made woman. I don't need help. So it's just like you have the guy, he has you wait for reasons. There are seasons and times for everything. So that way when it happens, you can be prepared. And it was a season of waiting. It's a season of building with me. And it's also a season of opening up my heart, so that way I'm able to receive and know that, the man that God has for you, the man that God has for me, the man that God has for all of his children, his women out there, is going to be a man that you deserve and everything that you need. And in your waiting season, make sure that you just do what you're supposed to do to not only please your husband, but please God, so you can be that perfect help.
Amen. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times we desire a relationship with someone else so bad that we forget about that God's wanting a relationship with you too. And I feel like a lot of times it goes bad so quick is because once God gives us that person, we forget about God and we make that person the top of everything when God is still supposed to be the center. And I kind of feel like that's why I go bad sometimes, and God has to be like remind us like, look, I'm still here, and you need to put me back at the top of y'all. And I know you happy to have your person, but you can't let them be the center of your life because that's what Christ is supposed to be. And you have to date yourself, get to know yourself, and allow God to work on you because he done worked out a good bit in me, but he's still working on some things. And I tell myself all the time, okay, you gotta get rid of this before you can, get with somebody, because nobody's gonna want to deal with that. Because I have mood swings a lot sometimes. Like 1 minute I want to talk to you, the next minute I just want to be by myself, or I try to isolate myself, and then I always say, okay, maybe God, he put me in an isolation period. And the pastor called me out on the sermon I watched. He was like, God not isolating you. That's you isolating yourself because you having all these mood swings. And I got to the point like, okay, did somebody tell him about me before I watched this sermon? Because he was just speaking to me. And you have to let God heal things within you and change the things that need to be changed about you before he can even put you in a place to be with somebody. And like you were saying, that if you had got married when you wanted to because you seen everybody else doing it, you would have messed up. But that's kind of like how we see God changing things in other people's life, and then we're like, okay, when is my turn? When am I going to get to do it? But like you said, the whole time he know that if he give it to you, you're going to fumble it because it's not your time and you're not ready for it yet. So you just have to wait for your time and be patient. And I think a lot of times people feel like once we come to God, he's just going to give us the things we ask for instantly. But it's going to take time because that waiting period just opens up time for him to teach you things and show you things, and you get to know things. And with the dating yourself, I feel like if you date yourself, the things you want somebody else to do for you, you should do it for yourself. So once somebody do start doing it for you, they can't hold it over your head like, I take you this place, I buy you all these nice things, and they can manipulate you with that. But if you do it for yourself, it won't come as making you, over your head. They can hold it over your head and make you stay because you like the things they're doing for you, because you do it for yourself before God even sent them to you.
I also want to say too that God knows you better than anybody, and so the person he creates for you, he's going to be able to handle any and everything, or she is going to be able to handle any and everything that you have or that you put them through. So if you're somebody where you're saying, well, I have mood swings or whatever, God knows the type of person you are, and the person that he's going to send with for you is going to be a very patient man, because my husband is a very patient man, because I have my ways about me. God knows me. He created me. And at the end of the day, we're still made of flesh, and he knows we're gonna have our ups and downs, but God's going to send you the right person that's going to love you, and he's going to send that person that's going to have every attribute to see you through in that marriage. So just because you don't have to be perfect and say, well, I'm mad and I get attitudes or whatever, we're human, but God's going to send you that right person that knows when it's time to give you your space, when it's time to back off, when it's like, okay, let me not say nothing to her, because that person is going to be made just from you. And that's just like with my husband. My sister said he is perfect for me because I can't be with a certain type of guy. I need a certain type of man for me because the way that I am, and God knows me. And that's why I'm so happy that he sent me my husband.
Yeah. And like what both of you were saying, the key that comes to my war point, that, like you said, you don't have to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. None of us are perfect. We all have sin. The point is we have to just be happy with the seasons. And just because you're not married yet, it doesn't mean that it's not for you. It's just not in that season for you yet, but it's going to happen. And the key thing is for you to be prepared is the renewing of your mind. And what Pastor Stephanie, what she said before her, because she has a series, she's talking about marriage. And she said marriage is not about happiness, because happiness is things happening to make you happy. It's just like when the renewing of your mind, you see that the marriage is meant to serve God. And it's just like if you're looking for that person to bring you joy every day, your marriage is not going to succeed because your joy doesn't come from them, it comes from God. So you're not going to be perfect in your marriage. You just have to change your mindset and renew your mind to know that my joy comes from the Lord, and as long as we are both submitted to him, we will have the marriage that he designed. So my word point is Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. Before time began, God's will for our life, including marriage, has been formed by his grace and his purpose, according to 2 Timothy 1:9. The key to getting over heartbreak, to obtain what God has for you, is to renew your mind so he may restore your soul. Bring your problems to him so he can get to the root of your problems, so he can become the center of your life, like you were saying. And this type of renewing, only then then will you be transformed to receive the perfect will for your life that God has for you, including marriage.
Yeah, that's true. That kind of makes me think about, I had wrote it down, Romans 8:28, and it talks about how it says, we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. Long as you're like you said, living out the will of God and walking according to his purpose, you're gonna have to do the same thing in your marriage and in your relationships. The purpose is gonna have to be him. And like you said, you're brought together for a reason, and that's to serve him and to amplify his word and to help bring other children back to him. And as long as you're doing that, it'll be fine. Not saying that, I think too that's where people go wrong, and they feel like just because we follow Christ, we're not gonna have problems. But you are gonna have problems. I don't think it's easier, but it's more tolerable because you have someone that's got your back and that can get you through it, other than you doing it by yourself when you were living in the world. So, because I got a friend, she's married, and she told me her husband were arguing one day, and he was like, Shakila don't need to hear this. And she said, yes, she do, because she need to know it ain't going to be perfect. But, it's whether you're able to work through it, because you're going to have those days where, it's not perfect. But you're just going to have to remember to remain in God and know that he going to work it out for y'all because he brought y'all together.
And like you said, the difference is every relationship going to have problems, but when you have Christ, the problem solver. So he can help you solve those problems in that relationship, especially when you keep him as the center. So my word point is from Psalms 37, verses 3-4, where it says, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed in his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. In your singleness, be happy and spend that time with God. Spend that time with a manufacturer so you can know your true identity. God desires your time and your heart. He does not care about your money or your things. He wants your heart. Spending time with the gardener allows him to display who you truly are. When he truly has your heart, your desires will be his desires. Trust your manufacturer. So when you're single, trust God. He knows your desires. He knows your heart. Spending that time with him, you'll know your true identity. And that's one thing that I just want single people to know. Spend that time with God, even if you're married. Spend that time with God. He knows you. That's where you will find your identity. And definitely, that's something that I want everyone to know. Spend time with God.
And one last thing I got to say is not go out, but like go places.
Amen.
Even though I'm still trying to get to that point, because even though I travel, like I do travel, but when I'm home, I'm just home. Like I work at home. And they always tell me, like, how you think you're going to find somebody if you don't never go nowhere? You think they're going to knock on your front door? And I'm like, I'm going to get to the point where I go places, but it's just like, I like to rather stay to myself, but then at the same time, I do want my person. But like they say, how you think you're going to find them if you not find them, but God send them to you, or you meet them if you're stuck in the house all the time. So you just have to find things that work with what God works. So you don't have to go to the club. You don't have to, go to the bar and all that stuff. Like I told him, I said, I go home, I go to work, I go to Walmart. I said, I'll meet him at the grocery store. They said, no, you're going to have to go to more than the grocery store. But I'm working on it, and go places. Don't be like me. Don't be stuck in the house other than when you're not traveling. Because I'm not saying you can't meet them abroad somewhere, but you still got to, don't be stuck in the house like me.
And it's a process.
Yeah, I'm working on too, because I'm the same way, very schedule oriented. Home, I'm like, I go to the grocery store. I was like, I go to the gym. Like, he meets me at the gym. Like you have to go out. Or I travel too. So it's just like the point is for me, it's just I have to understand, because even in the marriage, you can't be so schedule oriented. Things are gonna come. And so for me, I'm trying to relax a little bit more now and just be able to go with the flow. Just go with the flow, and be open, and like you said, get out of your norm. So that we can receive everything from God.
Amen. Yep. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Thank you, Shakila, for coming on Combat Culture. Let me testify. Links will be down in the description box. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Like and comment, subscribe on Shakila's channel as well. We'll have her channel listed down below. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks.